Hey everybody, I'm CJ and welcome back to Bibles on a Budget. Today we are taking a look at a really cool offering from the fine folks at Thomas Nelson. This is the Parallel New Testament with both the New King James Version and the New English Translation. So, as it says, it is a parallel New Testament, not a parallel Bible. So there is no Old Testament in this. This is just the New Testament. But what is also cool about this New Testament is that it comes with the NET notes. It says here, unparalleled insights with over 17,000 translator notes. So, unlike the full notes edition, which contains over 60,000 for both the Old and New Testament, this just contains over 17,000, mainly for the New Testament. Because again, this is just a New Testament. So before we take a look at the New Testament itself, we're going to look at the box briefly. So the box here is just your run-of-the-mill slip cover. As you can see, it's got the name of what it is, 17,000 notes. Got kind of like the parallel setup here, indicating the two sides. But the way that it's set up is very interesting. Typically, when you look at a parallel Bible, sometimes you will have a version here, and if it's like a four-way, it would be a version over here and a version over here. This is just a two-way, right? So it's just the New King James and the NET. However, you have the Bible over here, so you have the New King James and King James on the left side. Sorry, I said King James. I meant to say NET. Sometimes you say the New King James, your brain just, because they're kind of like friends, they're siblings in that saying, or father and son, however you want to word it. Anyway, but you have the New King James and NET on this side, and then you have the translator notes on this side, and sometimes they're also even down here. We'll see that in a second. So again, here's the box. Again, parallel New Testament, New King James, NET, so on. Here's the back. Got a little information about this whole thing. So you have some information about the New King James and then also about the New English translation. Super cool. Here's some features. It is a unique parallel edition of the New Testament. Over 17,000 translator notes from the NET Bible. And then there's also additional space on select pages for personal note-taking. I saw that one time and I was like, oh, that's really cool. I saw it says right underneath the translator notes, it will say notes, and then you'll see some line space, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. It's also Smythe sewn, it has satin ribbon, and it is a 9-point comfort print. I think this is, I don't know if it contains both the NET comfort print and the New King James. I think it does because in the back there is a note for both typefaces, so I think this one does come with both of them, so that's actually really cool. And then here's your first sneak peek of it. It is black Leathersoft, but it has some silver accents on the outside, and it does have some double perimeter stitching, which let's take a look at that right now, because this is absolutely gorgeous, my friends. Look at that. So you have this setup here where you have these two stitchings splitting the two sides of the Bible, right? Because this is a parallel Bible. So you have two Bibles, or well, technically two New Testaments in one. But like I said before, the scripture is over here on the left side, but then the notes typically are over here on the right side. And then again, you have the double line going from front to the back, and I apologize for it being a little dirty there. And then, as usual, you have the ISBN stamped into the cover. But I opened this Bible up when I got it from Thomas Nelson, and I just absolutely love it. It is gorgeous, guys. It is stunning. The Leathersoft is nice and soft. You know, it's not like as supple as normal leather, but it's a little stiff, but it's pretty good. I like it, and I love the black and red contrast with the silver. And you know, it's not just silver on the sides. It does come with silver gilding, so that's pretty cool. And then it also has the red satin ribbon marker and red head and tail bands. So this Bible I'm going to keep calling it Bible, so forgive me, but this New Testament is as thick as a normal Bible. So if you had like a normal NET, I think it's like a, I'm trying to remember what it's called, but the one without the notes, this is like the thickness of that. This is also like the thickness of like a normal, everyday New King James Bible. So that's really cool. So the Bible itself, let me pull up some information because I fail to do this a lot, and I apologize for that, but I don't always have the information for it. But the Bible itself is, according to this, it's 9.77 inches high. It is 6.68 inches wide, and it is 1.24 inches thick. So a little over an inch thick, almost 10 inches tall, and almost 7 inches wide. So this is a pretty decent sized Bible. It's not going to be something that you might be able to fit in a backpack. If your backpack wasn't super full, you could, but it's really nice. So that's the outside. Let's talk about the inside, the parts that really do matter because they contain the words of life, right? So let's open this up here. So with a lot of these more, I don't want to call them cheap, but you know, the non-leather Bibles, sometimes you have these paper paste down. So this one is gray paper paste down, and then you got the presentation page here, and then one of the intro pages, and then the second intro page, and then you have the copyright page over here. So this was printed in India, and this was printed in 2026. So this is a brand new Bible. This Bible is actually coming out. It's on pre-order right now, but it is coming out in February. So take a look at that. You can pre-order it from places like Amazon or even Church Source. And then here's the contents. So because this is just the New Testament, you're only going to get the New Testament. So Matthew through Revelation. But you also have a little bit of extra stuff here. So you have some information about this parallel edition, the story of the King James, or New King James, the preface to the New King James, to the reader, an introduction to the NET, features of the NET notes, just some way to help you understand the translator notes, the presentation and design, and the textual basis. And then here in the back, starting on page 1015, you have the NET principles of translation, abbreviations for biblical books and non-biblical literature, general abbreviations, list of cited works. So this will tell you what they're citing in the notes. So if you see abbreviations from different places, you'll know where they're citing them from. Abbreviations, an introduction to principal manuscript, evidence for the Greek New Testament, and then Hebrew and Greek transliteration. So this is, it's a lot of the features from the actual like full notes edition. So there you go, super cool. Then here again, this is about the parallel edition, giving you some information about it. Story of the New King James Version, the preface to the New King James Version. Here is the preface, or I guess like the little explanatory thing to the reader, an introduction to the New English Translation. Then here's the features of the New English Translation New Testament translator notes. So again, these are just the translator notes for the New Testament. The full Bible, the full notes edition, contains over 60,000 translator notes. This one has 17,000, which is still quite a lot. And then we have, this is really cool, so it still has the intro page for the New Testament. So, because usually in most Bibles you'll have like, oh, this is the Old Testament, and then once they get to the New Testament, they'll have the New Testament intro page. So, that's pretty cool. So, here is the main layout. So, like I said, on the left side you have the Bible, you have the New Testament in both New King James and NET, and then over here you'll see the notes. So the notes from the NET, the New Testament notes, are also double column. And you'll also see that there's an accent color, a super nice accent color. You have red for the names of the books, the pericopes, the chapter numbers. And then over here in the notes, you'll have them for the letters that indicate where these notes are from. So if you look in the Bible over here, especially, actually, sorry, in the NET, because these are the NET notes, there's no footnotes for the New Testament here for the NKJV, but there are translator notes over here for the NET. So if you look in the translation over here of the NET, you will see these small little letters. Let me see if I can even get get these to you. If you can see over there where it says ASA, you'll see a little D there, and then you come over here, and you'll see, oh, this is textual. I think this is textual critical note. So it says the reading of, I'm not sure how to read that in Greek, but it's Asaph. So this is an alternate spelling of the name Asa. So that's pretty cool. So like I said, you'll see where it says translator notes to TN, where it says Greek, and then it'll give you some information about that. And then you'll also have these textual critical notes and also study notes, which is really cool. And then over here you'll also see some information about the different manuscripts. And then you can also see it talks about the TCGNT, which is the, I want to say this is the TC, I think that's textual critical Greek New Testament. I was getting that confused with the Tyndale House GNT, which that might actually be it, but don't take my word on it. Check the back if you have one of these. But really cool stuff. And then down here, where it says notes, you have some very faintly lined spots. It's not split. It looks like the lines extend out to the edges from here to here. So that's pretty cool. So instead of having like margin space, you do have a little space to write some notes. Not extensive notes, but some notes nonetheless. And what's also really cool is down here, you'll see that it does indicate which column is which. So like I said, left side here on the parallel is New King James, and then over here on the right of the parallel is New English Translation. So that's how it is set up throughout the whole entire New Testament. One thing you'll also notice is that the New King James does have red letter, but the NET does not. And I'll show that even more substantially here. If we go to Matthew chapter 5, which is some of the most red letters. There's chapter 7, chapter 6. So you can see there is no red letters here in the NET. It's only in the New King James there. So, but you do still get your red letters here, but only in the New King James, not in the NET. So let's go to the back, and I'll show you some of that information I told you about earlier, where I was talking about the different abbreviations, the different names, and all that stuff, which is really useful when you're trying to read these notes to kind of figure out where they're citing things from and what they, where they're pulling all this information from, because they're not pulling it out of thin air. So here's the translator, the Bible Principles of Translation, kind of explaining their methodology and such, which is really cool. Abbreviations for Bible books and non-biblical literature like the Apocrypha. There's that. And then other ancient documents. So you'll see the abbreviations here and then explain what they are. So that's really cool. I do love that they also have the alternating columns here. So it's like pink and white. So I like that. That's really cool. And then abbreviations of Bible translations. So if they cite anything from like an alternative rendering from a different Bible, they'll tell you here what they are. And then also ancient versions like the Masoretic text and the Septuagint. And then this, let's see what this is. This is the general abbreviations, so tell you like different places where they pull some things. So there you go. Different stuff here. Commentaries and monograph series. Textual critical terms, that's really important too, so you know what these different abbreviations mean. Like you'll always see this one, MS or MSS. It just means manuscript or manuscripts. So there's that. And then miscellaneous abbreviations. And then list of cited works. So they do cite different works in their notes. So it also says down here scripture references and certain definitions in BDAG, which is a Greek lexicon, are printed in bold type. This convention has not been retained in the NET Bible notes. Otherwise citations from BDAG are exact. So there you go. So you got all kinds of different things. So if you're not familiar with what these are, you can come back here and be like, oh, that's where that's from. Okay. And then here are works cited by name and short title. So you have different works here cited in the notes, the names of the people who wrote them and contributed to them, and then also where they're from, where they were written, all that stuff. This is basically a bibliography. So that's really cool. So quite a few people that they're quoting from here, that they're citing. So super cool. And then here are some abbreviations for the manuscript evidence in the New Testament. So different things from papyri to minuscule and majuscules. So you got papyri names, tell you the date, what books they cover, and then their general characteristics, and that's just the straightness of it through all these, from the majuscules to the minuscules, and so on. So this is really cool. If you're somebody who's not familiar with any textual critical anything, this is, I think, a really cool thing to check out, so you can kind of understand, you know, like what are all these things and where do they come from and why are they important. And then you also have a section here called patristic evidence. A tremendous source for evidence of the Greek New Testament are citations found in the early church fathers. They help to locate and date various readings and type texts found in manuscripts and versions. So they have information on where some of these things, who would say them, and these are some different fathers, church fathers like Ambrose of Milan, Ambrosiaster from Rome, Athanasius, Augustine, Chrysanthemum, or I said that wrong. My brain called him flour. Clement, Cyprian, Cyril, Didymus, and so on. So that's really cool too, because a lot of people, they'll see how in the past these renderings were cited, and they'll see, oh, in this century, this person quoted this rendering as this, right? Like it'll show you what years these people were active in. So Ambrose of Milan was in the 4th century. Somebody like Cyprian, Bishop of Carthage, was around in the 3rd century, and so on. So that's really cool. And then on this side we have Hebrew and Greek transliteration. So this is going to help you to see like these different letters and then how they're pronounced and what their equivalents are, is what I'm trying to say, in English. So there's that. So it's got that for Hebrew, and not only just for Hebrew, you have the consonants here, but also it explains the different vowel markers. So like the patach, the fruitir patach, the kametz, and so on. So that's really cool. And then over here we got Greek English transliteration, so the different Greek letters. So you can also, if you're like me and you don't remember the order of Greek letters, like I've looked at them a few times, you can come back here and see like, oh yeah, Alpha Omega. That's the first and last letter. Jesus himself called himself the Alpha and the Omega. But we can see what order they are, like Alpha, Beta, Gamma, Delta, Epsilon, Zeta, Eta, Theta, Iota, Kappa, Lambda, Mu, Nu. And then you also can see how to pronounce them over here and what their equivalents are as consonants and vowels in English. So, and then there's also these things called rough breathing marks. So that's pretty cool. There you go. And that's pretty much it. There's no concordance, there's no maps. The only last thing you get after all these blank pieces of paper is a note regarding the typeface for both of them. So here's a note for the New King James typeface and a note for the NET. And that's pretty much it. Got your end page, paste down, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Pretty much it. So I really like this thing. If you're a fan of, maybe you're a fan of both, you like the New King James from Thomas Nelson, but you also like the NET, this is a great addition because you have the New Testament, right, which is the main documents that Christians use as Holy Scripture. We also use the Old Testament, obviously, but the New Testament is a Christian document. So you have the New Testament here for both versions, right, and then you have not only that, but 17,000 NET translator notes, which span translator notes, study notes, textual critical notes, all that kind of stuff. And then you have extensive references, you have bibliographies, all kinds of things telling you where they cite these things from, where they get their information from, why they do this, and blah, blah, blah. All that fun stuff is still contained in this Bible. And this Bible is much thinner than a normal full notes edition. Full notes edition, I believe, is around 2-ish inches thick. This one is a little over an inch thick, but it is super cool. It is really nice. I love the color. the black, the red, the silver, all of it is just gorgeous. It is nice. I commend Thomas Nelson for a beautiful Bible here. The font size is good. I like the 9. I think that, I don't know if it says anything about how big the notes are. The notes are, if you compare them side by side, the Bible font is way bigger than the notes. The notes is much smaller, and they probably did that so they can fit more on the page. So I can still read them just fine, but if you have a little trouble with that, just consider that. But super nice, super nice. I just love everything about it. Very nice presentation. I don't know, I can check the copyright, but I don't know, for those who are maybe interested in getting a leather version someday, I don't know if Thomas Nelson is going to make one, or if this is the only type that they're doing right now. At least there's no indication from what I can see on the copyright page that there are going to be other editions. I know there's a hardback edition. If you look at Amazon on pre-order, there is a hardback edition for this. But if you want this particular edition, you want to pre-order this one, you have to go to Church Source, and I'll leave some links in the description below, so that if you want to get the Leathersoft version, you can get that, or if you want to get the hardback version, you can get that from Amazon or from Church Source. So yeah. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this episode of Bibles on a Budget, this video, whatever you want to call it. And remember, folks, the truth does not have to be expensive. See you in the next one.